This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to A Time to Care the Caregivers podcast. I'm Isabel Melgarejo, your host. Did you listen last week's podcast? If you didn't, go ahead and listen because this is part 2 for that podcast. Last week, I talked about how to set yourself in the present when you're worried about the future. And today, I want to talk about how to set yourself in the present when you are ruminating about the past. So let's get started. I'm pretty sure everybody in this world has done something or didn't do something, and then we regretted it. And then we are ruminating about why we didn't do it, or why we did it, or what we would have done differently, and what we could have done to change things. And well, that never works, right? Can we change the past? No, but we can change how we think about the past. And I think this is very important because a lot of the clients that I work with have a lot of thoughts about what they did and didn't do. And sometimes they feel guilty about things that they did or didn't do or wish they would have done differently. And that's why I want to talk about this, because I don't want you to feel guilt or feel that you could have done something differently. You did whatever you did based on how you were feeling and what you thought it was best at that moment. Obviously, if we would have known, or if we knew what would happen in the future, that would be fantastic, because we would all know which would be the best decisions. But we don't. So let's stop worrying or ruminating about the past. And here are some things that I usually do to stop ruminating about the past. When I find myself about just thinking over and over a situation that really bothers me, and right now I can't think of anything, but I do this very often. I tend to ruminate and like, oh crap, I said this and I shouldn't have. And I just keep ruminating about it, and I shouldn't have said it, especially things that I wish I wouldn't have said or would have said differently. So I just keep saying these over and over in my head. Now, well, I can't change it. I already said it, so. So one of the things that I do is, okay, I am right now here. I breathe through my feelings. I acknowledge what I'm feeling. That is the first thing that I do. Once I notice that I'm ruminating, I try to identify how I feel, because not all rumination is the same. And maybe it's not rumination, it's just like you thinking about the past and staying there and being anxious about it. So the first thing is identifying how you feel. Maybe you feel sad. Maybe you feel guilt. Maybe you feel remorse. I don't know. There's tons of ways of feeling. And the first thing is to identify how you feel. And by that is physically what your body is telling you. So you know that your heart is beating faster. Your muscles are tense. Whatever it is. Your face gets red. That's me all the time. But when you identify that and you relate that those physical sensations in your body with a feeling, then you've done the first part, which is acknowledging how you feel. And this is crucial for whatever we do in our lives, because maybe there are some families that are very good at teaching their children how to manage their feelings and emotions. And I think we have gone a long way. But when I was born, that was not a thing. And probably it's not a thing, and probably was not a thing for you either. And I still see it with lots of families. You just shove your feelings down, you don't express them, and you move on. What if we were to actually acknowledge them? It is very hard because we were never taught about it. If you see a kid making a tantrum, parents are just like, stop crying or I'm going to hit you, instead of like acknowledging their feelings and knowing why they are reacting the way they are. So I can see that, and I can see how we are not educated to manage those feelings. And this is why you have to acknowledge them, put them a name. A very good friend of mine, she says that she has two mothers, one that was the lovely one, the one that cared for her, pampered her, nurtured her, and the other one that was terrible and inflicted a lot of trauma on her. So with time, she has learned how to identify, and depending who is acting, she names them in different ways. So that's what you need to do. You need to name your feelings, and you can name them whatever you want to name them. You can actually put them like, oh, this is Tom visiting me. And Tom is being angry. I don't know. If there's any Toms there, I'm not picking on you. It was the first name that came to my mind. You can name your feelings, and that is so useful because then you learn to identify them and put them kind of in a box. And then you start breathing through those feelings. You breathe and you let those feelings flow. And you think about it, you're paying attention to what's happening in your body. And as you breathe, you will notice that you will start calming down and you will start coming into a neutral position. I don't even know if that's a thing, but your emotions neutralize. We're not always happy. We're not always excited. We're not always sad or angry or anything. Like, those feelings fluctuate. So when we let them flow and we acknowledge them, they flow faster. Because when we just push them down, our brain knows that there's a conflict that needs to come out and will push it harder up. A few weeks ago, we talked with Alicia Yosha. She talked about this, like how when we drown our feelings, eventually they come up. I know we talked about this in terms of grief, but it's everything. It is absolutely everything. If we don't let those feelings flow, they will come up and chase us because our brain knows that we need to manage those emotions and there's something that we need to resolve. Acknowledge them. And because your brain is letting you know that you're upset about something, I think we need to be grateful. So we need to thank our brain once those emotions have passed. Once we breathe through what we were feeling and we notice that we're back to a neutral state, then we thank our brains for letting us know. I think this is something not a lot of people do, but I think it is fantastic because many times we're really rough with ourselves. We talk to ourselves very harsh, and that is not nice. We were on vacation last week, and one of the things that I've been working is not eating after I am full. Once I feel full, I try to stop eating. And we were at a restaurant and I was trying to eat as much as possible so it wouldn't go to waste. I hate food going to waste. And because we were traveling, I couldn't take the food with me as leftovers and have them the next day. And then I felt terrible. I felt terrible physically because I had eaten way too much. And I felt terrible that I hadn't kept my promise to myself. And I was beating myself hard. Like, we've gone through these many times. Why are you still failing? I was being so harsh to myself. And eventually I let my feelings flow. And I told my brain, thank you for letting me know that how I feel. And that brought me so much gratitude because after beating myself, showing myself a little bit of love felt so good. And it's just thanking your brain. Thank you for letting me know that I'm upset. That was so liberating. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be liberating for you as well because you sort of forgive yourself. And if you talked really bad to yourself, and if you notice that, you could even forgive yourself. Like, hey, I'm sorry. Or ask for forgiveness. Hey, I'm sorry that I talked to you this way. I love you. Don't beat yourself more. Don't say, I shouldn't have talked to you this way or anything like that. But imagine that. Imagine how good it feels. I know it feels fantastic because I've done it. I wish I did it more often, but when I do, it's okay. I'm sorry I spoke to you this way. I love you. Try it whenever you're beating yourself and let me know how that went. And finally, when you are going through all this rumination, once you have acknowledged your feelings, digested it, thank your brain, forgiven yourself, after all that, tell yourself what you need to tell yourself. So you can maybe come up with something that has been where you really succeed. Hey, this is not all bad. Remember 2 weeks ago when you brought the leftovers back home? You're working on it. You will get there. The same with everything you do. If you're beating yourself up because you were really harsh talking with somebody and you snapped, forgive yourself, and probably you can ask forgiveness to that person as well. But if you're not, think about all the times that you've nailed it, that you've done the right thing, because you have. We're not monsters all the time. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you're liking this podcast, go ahead and review it. And if you're not, you can review it as well. See you next week.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.